Well, most of you probably know that Doug, my husband Doug, had shoulder surgery just after Easter. And he's pretty much now dependent. He has one arm that he can't use. He's in a sling that holds it out this way, and his other arm is not his dominant arm. He's left-handed, so it's his left shoulder. And so this hand is pretty much not able to do a whole lot either. And so he's dependent on someone else. Guess who? And so I say this because I thought about how this relates to where the disciples are in our gospel lesson this morning. And what I mean by that is that we are in a transition in our home. We're in the midst of a change. We're not able to do things that we normally do or the way that we normally do them because Doug is not able to do things that he normally does. And so everything that we do takes more time and more effort and more patience. And we're trying to figure out how we live into this recuperation period. Now, I also want to say, he knows that I was telling you this because I made him listen to the sermon yesterday because he wasn't going to be here this morning. And I also want to say, I made him, he can't do anything, right? I also want to say thank you for your prayers and your understanding as we learn how to live into this newness, at least for the next few weeks. But how does that relate to where the disciples are? Well, I think that the disciples are in the midst of a time of change and transition and crisis or opportunity moment as well. I mean, after all, Jesus died a pretty horrible death. And now, for the third time, he's going to appear to his disciples that he is now the risen Christ. But until then, they're trying to figure out what all of this means. What does it mean now that Jesus is resurrected? And what does it mean for the disciples? How are they supposed to live their lives now that Jesus has risen? And so what do? They go back to something normal. They go fishing. That's what they know. And while they're fishing, I can imagine they have some time to sort of think things through. They have some time to talk things out. They have some time to try to figure out what all of this actually means for them. We're in that same sort of boat. I mean, we have to figure out what does it mean that Jesus was raised. And sometimes we're even questioning, could that really happen? Is that something that is necessary for us to have faith that Jesus rose from the dead and that we celebrate and that we follow the risen Jesus? And if we have times that we doubt that, does that mean that we can't be called believers? No. And if we have trust and faith, if we have allowed ourselves to put down the barriers so that we do trust and believe, then so what? What does it mean that Jesus is alive and says to Peter and to us, follow him? So I love that discussion, that three-part discussion that Jesus has with Peter. If you remember, Peter was the one who strongly said, Jesus, I will never leave or forsake you, no matter what. And it was all well and good until Jesus was arrested and the going got tough, and Peter said very publicly, I don't even know this man. And so now this third time that Jesus appears, he has this conversation with Peter. Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, yes, Lord, of course I do. And Jesus says, great, I have things for you to do. Turn that love, turn that assurance of who I am into action. And then we'll figure out together, Jesus and the other disciples will figure out what exactly that means. What it is that Jesus wants them to do, where it is that Jesus wants them to be, and how Jesus wants them to love the neighbor and to serve the other. Jesus' call to us is very similar. Do you love me? Yes. I'm getting feedback. It's really great right here. Yes, I do. You all can't hear all of that. But she's saying the right things at the right moments. Thank you, Katie. Yes. And so if you do, then turn that love into action. Because God has things that need to be done, and God has us to do them.